Our next presenter is a man that perhaps few of us know at this point, and most of us know personally or by reputation Bob Cutler. The man who's presenting now is one of the, what I like to think of as the younger generation of researchers. I think Vince Palamara, based on some of the unpublished work of his that I've seen, is somebody that we are going to hear from, and we're going to have constructive dialogue with for many years to come. At least that's my hope, and so I'd like at this time to thank Vince Palamara.
The basis of my paper is basically, you saw it, basically the Secret Service complicity in the case, as Mr. Cutler knows. He has my paper, and Jerry Rao, he has it. And, that's 90% of my paper. And there's Jerry there. And the other 10% is basically, I'll read you the title: Greer's the Brooder to the Smoking Bullet, analysis of this, in the section of Secret Service Agent William Greer, Zapruder film, and what I call a devastating discovery by myself. And do the logistics of not having a video camera here, or I'm sorry, TV to be able to show this film. This is something that unfortunately I'm not going to be able to formally present here, but I definitely want to make this a part of my presentation afterwards. So informally, I'd like to get together and show this, but it's not going to affect the major portion of my presentation. It's almost, as much as I call it a devastating discovery, it's almost an afterthought to my general paper. So when dissecting the many fears and paranoia surrounding the assassination of President Kennedy, based on the many facts and theories of conspiracy involved in the case, perhaps the greatest evidence of complicity that can be substantiated is the actions and the inactions of Secret Service Agent Bill Greer, as established on the Zapruder film. And although other films are tantalizing, like the Marie Muchmore film and Orville Nix film, I think that Zapruder film is, from the angle and so forth, is what we call the primary sources available. The first little background is needed. Greer, age 54 at the time of the President's murder, was one of the oldest members of the White House detail, as well as a veteran of the Secret Service since leaving the Roosevelt administration. As an experienced official chauffeur, Greer had the honor of driving Presidents Truman, Eisenhower, and Kennedy all over the world many times. During the Kennedy administration in particular, Greer was especially in the thick of things, as he drove JFK through tumultuous receptions in Latin America, Ireland, and Germany, just to name a few. And if you're familiar with America Remembers John F. Kennedy and Celebration of Life and Time, I'm sure, well, if you happen to look for him, you'll see Bill Greer a lot of times in the SX-100, you'll see driving the car. And as was customary, the chief of the White House detail, Gerald Benn, sat beside him in the front seat of the presidential limousine, which was usually the specially made 1961 Lincoln Continental, designated by the Secret Service as SX-100 with a license plate number GG300. In addition, the Secret Service follow-up car, a 1955 Cadillac nicknamed the Queen Mary, due to its weight 10,000 pounds, trailed directly behind the presidential limousine, filled with usually alert naval agents, ready to respond to any crisis, even if the crisis was merely the disbursement of a crowd of over-anxious well-wishers who got too close to the president's car. Finally, as was customary, the local police augmented these presidential motorcades by the use of many motorcycle police officers who usually flanked the limousine in good number. However, all this was to change radically during Kennedy's trip to the Lone Star State, namely Dallas. The Houston and San Antonio motorcades went off without incident the day before Dallas, the city to which JFK was warned to avoid by several colleagues, notably Adlai Stevenson, which is a pretty famous warning. Roy Kellerman was substituting for Ben, who, as previously mentioned, normally made these presidential trips, but not in this case. As the Kennedys departed upfield to begin the motorcade to the trademark, JFK had to have felt secure because he was told the greatest security measures ever afforded a president in the history of the Secret Service was set up for Dallas. And perhaps this is why Kennedy told a concerned Congressman Henry Gonzalez, don't worry, Henry, the Secret Service told me they took care of everything. You don't have to worry about it. And Marty Underwood, who was Jerry Bruno's assistant advance agent, and he advanced Kennedy to Houston and Austin. He basically said to Marty, 18 hours before, Marty, you worry about me too much when he heard these rumors. It's another story itself, the rumors that were going around. The greatest security, the security was stripped away at a local and federal level. As we know from maybe our reading in High Treason, Crossfire, and some other books that are just commonly available. Sheriff Decker told his men to in no way participate in the security of the motorcade. The 112th Military Intelligence Unit at Fort Sam Houston was preparing for duty in Dallas when it received instructions not to report to that city. And Secret Service agents Winston Lawson and Forrest Sorrells being the senior agent in charge in Dallas, assured Special Agent in Charge Kellerman that Dallas was going to be a good program, they were going to be safe there, mapped out the route that Kennedy would take in Dallas, and it was a route that should have continued down Main Street as advertised in Dallas Morning News, and I'm sure there's been conflict about that. Well, hey, they made the motorcade route before, but then it was changed made afterwards. But then the newspaper for Dallas was the Times Herald. They said he was supposed to continue down Industrial Boulevard to the Trade Mart. So there's a little bit of an open question there, but for some reason it was changed after the 18th, the original time it got changed. Finally, several important members of the Secret Service detail, those in immediate security work for the President, proceeded to get drunk the night before Dallas, and these men who violated Secret Service rules and could have been removed from the force were not punished by Secret Service Chief James Rowley. In fact, the thing was more or less covered up. In an official book on, Death of a President, it was gleaned over. Basically, you can tell it was like, let's give these boys a break, let's don't name names, and let's forget about it. Although they were on the follow-up car, and we'll see what happens there. But with no Secret Service agents stationed in Dallas, no one to check the rooftops, the manholes, the windows, etc., and limited motorcycle distribution and involvement by the local police, security was left up to the men in the cars of the moving motorcade. Clearly, Bill Greer played a pivotal role in this capacity. As the motorcade reached Main Street in the heart of downtown Dallas, it was apparent that the worries were unfounded. In quotations, Kennedy's trip was a stunning success. Only a matter of several minutes and the President would be safely at the Trade Mart. Dallas would be over, so to speak. As the limousine made the right-hand turn onto Houston Street, the Texas School Book Depository came into view. Greer was driving at approximately 15, maybe 20 miles an hour. An assassin, let's assume it's audible, but an assassin could have fired directly at that point. However, no shots were fired during this highly advantageous time, and there's an informal discussion yesterday, it's in High Treason, for example. FBI Director Hoover explained the strange details of the Warren Commission, who were looking for an answer, to say that a tree blocked the assassin's view from this window, when from that view, as you can see in the Hughes film and the Bronson film, there was no tree even remotely in this view. As the lead motorcycles made the turn onto Elm Street, Abraham Zapruder began to start filming. And even before the presidential limousine was on the street, a strange thing occurred. One of the lead motorcycle officers, and possibly H.R. Freeman, separated himself from the motorcade in front of the depository. And on the Zapruder film, even one of the officers, when the film slowed down, which is on here, you can see him, he's turning, and he really makes a turn to look. It's not just he's glancing, he's like literally, you can see him going like stretching, because it appears that the motorcycle officer keeps going down Houston Street. So it's like it just follows right. He goes down, and he's like looking like this, like where the heck is he going? Basically, and but the remaining motorcycle officer nods his head to no one on either side of the street that is apparent in the film. Where he does this is exactly where the first shots are fired. And like the officer who headed down Houston Street alone, this could have been a signal of some kind. But obviously, that's subject to interpretation. Finally, the object of Zapruder's affection comes into view. Kennedy's car makes the 120-degree Secret Service violating left-hand turn onto Elm Street, also in violation of strict Secret Service regulations for the slow speed of the car and the choice of hazardous route. And JFK's final moments of life are captured here as he brushes back his hair and waves to the crowd. As the car approaches the Stemmons Freeway sign, while the Hertz clock atop the depository roof reads 12:30, the initial volley of shots ring out. As Kennedy emerges from behind the sign, his hands move over his throat and he reacts to a shot from the front. Almost simultaneously, he's shot in the back, and Connolly is hit in the back by separate shots from behind, from either the depository or the Dow Tex building, and the roof of the Dallas County Records building cannot be ruled out either. Now, thrust in my paper here, and I just touched on little parts of the Secret Service activity or inactivity. What does Greer do at this time? Okay, he slows the car down even more, And the brake lights are on the Zapruder and Nix film, and perhaps the Muchmore film. That's one I have not studied for this, as evidence. Also, witnesses Mary Moorman, James Elkins, James Leon Simmons, Norman Similis, Charles Brehm, and Hugh Betzner all stated the presidential limousine slowed down and almost completely stopped during the initial, during this crucial period of time, during the first shot or shots. In a sampling of eyewitness testimony, Mary Moorman said when she heard the shots, the car either momentarily stopped or hesitated. Mary Woodward, reporter for the Dallas Morning News. She saw the president's car come to a halt after the first shot. Then, after hearing two more shots close together, the car then sped up. Charles Brehm. It seemed to him that the automobile almost came to a halt after the first shot. Hugh Betzner. I looked down the street after the first shot, and I could see the president's car and another one, and they looked like the cars were stopped. He then stated that he heard at least two more shots fired and saw the impact of the limousine. The motorcade then sped up. And finally, James Simmons. The car stopped or almost stopped. So far, we have evidence of flagrant bad judgment on Triple Greer's part, a lack of common sense, and most disturbing of all, the breakdown of Secret Service requirements, all in the hands of someone who obviously knew better and was trained to react upon this knowledge. I mean, he's not just like me or you. He's a Secret Service agent, official chauffeur. He's been doing this since the Truman era. He's done this many a times, okay? And the important thing is, in a lot of books, and this is no cut on the books, and I'm sure you might have read this before because they always talk about Greer looking back. But we're only at the beginning of the shooting, okay? What is Greer's reaction to all of this? Okay, he looks back at Kennedy, and in fact, so does Mr. and Mrs. Connolly, and so does Roy Kellerman, who suddenly realizes what is going on. This is Kellerman's testimony to the Warren Commission. As I turned my head to the right to view whatever it was, I heard a voice in the back seat, and I firmly believe it was the president saying, "My God, I am hit." And I turned around, and he's got his hands up here like this, indicating both hands up near the head, as you see. It was enough for me to verify that the man was hit. Greer, however, stated that he never caught sight of Kennedy, although he did admit this to FBI agents Siebert and O'Neill, which he later denied to the Warren Commission. Now, returning to the Zapruder film, we can see the car continue to glide slowly down Elm Street. Greer still has his foot on the brakes. There was time to react. The fatal shot had not yet arrived. And if it's possible to give Greer the benefit of the doubt so far, for one, slowing down the car, and two, looking back at Kennedy, the following actions erase that chance forever. For Greer stares back at Kennedy again. See, these books talk about one stare back. They don't talk about the second one. Returning to Roy Kellerman's testimony, he stated that after the time he looked back at JFK, in the same motion, I come right back and grab the speaker and said to the driver, "Let's get out of here, we're hit." And grabbed the mic, I said, "Lawson, this is Kellerman, we are hit. Get us to the hospital immediately." Now, in the seconds I just taught, the flurry of shells have come into the car. Now, in direct conflict with that film and with Kellerman's testimony, Greer testified that he turned back forward after this first unwarranted gaze and began to accelerate the car at the same time that Kellerman yelled, "Get out of here fast." Then he claimed to have heard a third shot. However, perhaps Kellerman's chat with William Manchester comes closest to reality. He stated he ordered Greer to leave the scene and radioed the alarm to Lawson just before the fatal final shot. And this is the quote from Kellerman. Greer then looked in the back of the car. Maybe he didn't believe me. The Zapruder film is conclusive. Kellerman turns to Greer. Greer then turns his head back to the front. Kellerman then puts the radio mic in his left hand up to his face, and then Greer turns back to stare at JFK for the second time until after the fatal shot makes its mark. It's basically a situation where they're going down, okay, and first shot or shots, excluding all this, you know, the controversy with the front or the back. Shots right now, that's that. He looks back. He's a trained Secret Service agent, like I told you before. And, you know, government is calling it to turn back. That's human nature. I mean, whether it was a breakdown in training, it was this human instinct. They hear a sign, they look back. Even Kellerman looked back. You can see him turn and he's like, he looks back. Now, in this motion, and Kennedy's like this, and there's still a few more seconds for the fatal shot is to come. Kellerman, when he turns back, he pauses for just a moment. And obviously, you can't read lip syncs from the other side of the car, so I'm not going to pretend to be a lip reader here. According to what Kellerman said and the actions of the film, when he turns back, according to his testimony, he said, "Get out of here, we've been hit." And then he turns back around. And Greer has turned back around, and so does everybody else. Now, and this is in the film, when Kellerman's got his hand back up here with the microphone, which you can see, that's when Joe Greer turns back around and stares at Kennedy again. Obviously, with his foot on the brakes, the car's not going any faster, and then that's where you read in the books where then the fatal shot makes its mark, and only then does he turn around, and only then does he accelerate the car. See, people make it like it was one look back. Okay, it does it, but there's two looks back. So this mumbo jumbo about, well, it was just a mistake or human instinct, I don't buy that at all. When it went down the street, it had, obviously, as we know, Secret Service Agent Clint Hill clinging to the back of SX-100. As you probably know this part about Hill. He was the only agent to react properly in the follow-up car, and he was not originally scheduled to make the Dallas trip, and he came via Mrs. Kennedy's personal request. As for the other agents, including those intoxicated from the trip to the cellar the night before, they did not react, perhaps because the commander of halfback, follow-up car, Emory Roberts, ordered the men not to move. And Agent John Reddy, who was the other man, here's Clint Hill, and here's John Reddy, was in the process of reacting, but he was recalled from Emory Roberts. And here again, people want to be skeptical and say, "Oh, come on! I mean, what does that show?" All it shows is what Emory Roberts said. He said he recognized Oswald's first shot as a shot. Okay, he recognized that shot. Well, what the hell did he do in the next 5 or 6 seconds? Absolutely nothing. And you can even see in the Alkins photo, they're just standing there. And what happened. He recognized the first shot as a shot. Why didn't he shot? Why didn't he do anything? Even if it would have been in vain, why didn't everybody lunge forward? And now returning to the fatal shot, a few items of interest should be noted. Before the limousine disappears behind the sign, a young girl named Rosemary Willis can be seen running after the presidential limousine, only to stop dead cold for no apparent reason. It's like she's running along the car and she stops. But however, according to her testimony, she caught a glimpse of a suspicious man standing behind the corner of the concrete retaining wall on the grassy knoll. He appeared conspicuous and who then disappeared in the next instant. And this is why she stopped and stared over the knoll, where Jim Moore in his book tries to make it like, well, she was looking up at the depository, that's the reason why she stopped. You can see she's looking over in the direction, general area of the retaining wall in Pergola, in that direction. And the head of the man and possibly a rifle can be seen during the latter portion of the Zapruder film when Clint Hill's in the trunk as the car passes the knoll in the retaining wall. Now, this has been a topic of much dispute, as I'm sure a lot of people know. Although the House Select Committee said that this person was merely a bystander, I love that one, they forgot one thing. No one was wearing a hat of the kind the bystander is wearing, not Emmett Hudson or nobody else on the stairs, or anyone else either filmed or officially accounted for. Keeping in mind the tantalizing objects in the Mormon photo, including the badge man, the head of a man wearing a hat behind the picket fence. The other part, you see the badge man, but there's also a man, and you can see a hat. They always talk about a head. Well, what I see is I see a hat there. And Willis slide number 5, which sort of matches up with the Bessner film, when you see somebody behind the retaining wall. And the photos of the 3 tramps, one of whom is wearing a hat. And this is why I went through all this still photos to substantiate suspicious activities with the man in a hat. And the House Select Committee said this is a bystander, but nobody was wearing a hat. It was officially accounted for in official films of people in front of the fence and the retaining wall. So the House Select Committee just overlooked that whole matter to say the bystander, and that's it. And then 5 minutes before the motorcade arrived, at a time when we were scheduled to do so in Houston Street, a young man described as wearing green army fatigues, possibly Latin, suffered a seizure near the front door of the depository, effectively distracting police and bystanders while the assassins moved into position and were got ready. An ambulance was sent to pick up the man, and an O'Neill Funeral Home ambulance was on standby in case of injury to the president. It was driven by Aubrey Reich and Dennis McGuire, the same men who would later load Kennedy's body into the same ambulance for the return trip to Love Field. Furthermore, once the ambulance carrying the epileptic man arrived at Parkland Hospital, the destination of the mortally wounded president, the man walked off, refusing to be treated or to identify himself. The man's identity, Jerry Belknap, came much later when the FBI investigated the matter, although there was no mention of it in the Warren Commission report, obviously. And the Zapruder film also captures the actions of the Umbrella Man, the only man with an open umbrella on this hot day, as verified by countless pictures and films of Dallas on November 22, 1963. The man, along with a dark-complected companion, who raises his hand high into the air, pumps his umbrella up higher where he stood, just past the Stevens Freeway sign, right where the initial shooting takes place. And where I differ with Mr. Cutler is I think that he was more or less just a signal. I don't buy into the cliché, but I do think that he was a signal of some sort, and I think it was suspicious. And I think it would really indict some, as you could say, well, okay, it was a coincidence. He was there, he had an open umbrella, and supposedly, according to the man who identified himself as the Umbrella Man, Lewis Stephen Witt, I think it was, House Committee. And basically what he said was it was because Joe Kennedy Sr. It was a symbolic political statement. And he did. The Kennedys don't like these umbrellas. The only thing is that when the initial shooting took place, he didn't back out. He didn't stop his actions. The shooting was going on. The man's still there with the umbrella. It's pretty strange. And now returning to Greer after the shooting, Secret Service Agent Greer will go on to leave the race to Parkland Hospital, as the Jack Daniel film shows, as well as stay behind at the hospital, ostensibly because Kellerman was unwilling to wait for him, while the body of JFK was taken out of Parkland, or was it? This was the only time in the last few days that designated driver Greer did not chauffeur the president. He would later drive the gray Navy ambulance to Bethesda. Perhaps Greer's role in the conspiracy ties into the work of David Lifton and his body alteration transportation theory. One thing is certain, Greer's testimony cannot be trusted, as has already been shown to some degree. His statements that he never caught sight of Kennedy, the speed of the limousine on Elm Street was all 50 miles the entire time, and his testimony that he was led to the hospital by the police car preceding him. During an interview with David Lifton conducted on November 20th, 1967, Greer was an enigma. For reasons that I can understand, Lifton said, he was under the impression that Kennedy's coffin had gone in the front door of the hospital. I'm a little vague about it, Greer said, but I'm always sure it went in the front door. It definitely did not. Also disturbing are Lifton's findings. On November 26th and 27th, 1963, FBI agents Siebert and O'Neill went to the White House to interview Greer, going so far as to record his complete physical description, including age, height, and color of eyes. It certainly was not routine for the FBI to take such information from a fellow government agent who was not a target of investigation. And Lifton poses an obvious question that why didn't Siebert and O'Neill treat Greer in this fashion? The other agents they interviewed those same days, including Kellerman and Gerald Bent, were not given this treatment, and I found something that could be a reason why they did this. Mark Lane interviewed Secret Service Agent Abraham Bolden on December 4th, 1967. Bolden, assigned to the White House detail, told Lane that an unauthorized person had used Secret Service credentials in Dealey Plaza on November 22nd, 1963, a matter widely known in the service. Accordingly, all special agents were required to surrender their identification documents for an unprecedented service-wide check on November 27, 1963, exactly the time that Siebert and O'Neill were there getting his complete age, height, and color of eyes. So that is 90% of my paper, and like I said, as far as Greer's actions and inactions, and I think the crucial evidence is the Zapruder film. A lot of times, and I'm going to get to my discovery in just one moment, but I'd like to say that I was fortunate enough to obtain a really clear copy of the film. Not a lot of times you see the fuzzy ones, the ones that have just, they're like a third generation copy. And consequently, I was able to really slow this one down. So I was able to see things, and you'll see for yourself too, see things that you normally don't see. You think you've seen the Zapruder film hundreds of times, and we know what happens here, we know what happens here. But it was a double look back of Greer. It was Kellerman with the radio of his hand corroborated his testimony, and it was some of the other suspicious shapes and things that seemed to be fantasy of other theorists that seemed to came to light. Now here's the thing that I really wish we had a TV here I could show it to you right now, but like I said, this will be later on. I discovered something January 5th of this year, something that I never thought I'd see the day where I'd be advocating something that I always thought until this time was one of the fringe theories, kind of one of those things that's like, yeah, Peter Pan was on the grassy knoll, yeah, like this is true. There's a theory that Penn Jones Jr. has advocated for a long time, and I think Jim Garrison and a few others advocated more or less. The deal was someone in the sewer in front of the car that fired a bullet. In fact, even on Penn Jones' tours, I had this on film from 1975, he does his tour, and one of the things he does is obviously get inside the manhole. You might have seen articles. And he has spectators actually take off the manhole, get inside, and you can see from the view, and I have still photos of it, you can see from that perspective, you can actually see the car coming down. It's a very unique perspective, and this could corroborate, and there's a reason why I'm talking about this, it's going to get to my discovery. This could corroborate some of the testimony about the smoke. There was conflicting things about the smoke. People smelled smoke, saw smoke. The thing was, a lot of us critics say, well, no, it couldn't have came from the Texas School Depository. All right, it means there was, conspiracy came from the knoll. The thing is, honestly, how could it come from the knoll too? It was too far up. But it does make sense if they smelled street. Senator Yarborough, Deary, Cabell, and several others smelled street level smoke. Street level smoke could come from that very same sewer. And so leading to my discovery. On January 5th of this year, a friend of mine, he has a few VCRs. One of them is one that I don't think is even on the commercial market, and you'll see for yourself what he's done to this film. You've seen Blown Up, you've seen Robert Grodin's work, and he's a pioneer in that field. But what he's done, he's been able to split screen it and quadruple screen the film. He's been able to blow things up while other parts of the film are moving. And the most crucial thing is with this very clear copy, we're able to slow it down, extremely slow down the car. And without that rolling effect you get when you pause, how you can pause in your standard VCRs, and you get a lot of rolling. Well, this one literally is almost like a frame-by-frame analysis. It's going that slow. And on January 5th, when we slowed down the film, took it home that night, I saw, and this was a very controversial thing, what I'm going to say here, but I saw what appeared to be a frontal projectile coming from the trajectory, not of the grassy knoll, not of the Texas School Book Depository, but in line with the shot from the sewer. And it is only based on that discovery. Since that time, I've shown it to about a dozen people. Some people don't give a damn about any conspiracy, and they think it's all fantasy. They've seen it too, and they even said the same thing. It's a photographic artifact. It's the cleverest thing. It's like a guided missile. It's coming. It's about the right size from that perspective. You can see it coming. It's perfect timing. It's perfect trajectory. And the only reason I say that for last, like I said, I wish we had this here to see it right now. It's going to be shown later on formally, and basically to show you that obviously this is not proven. I mean, only dozen people seen it. I quote unquote discovered it, but this is not like the single bullet theory, the Warren Commission. If this falls down, it's not like it's going to be the end of my research. And this was basically an accessory thing. But I would really like to see this proven or disproven. And I know about the law of physics, and I know about bullets can be captured on regular film, 18.3 frames per second and all that. But the only thing is, sort of corroborates all this is in 1978, Larry Sturdivant of the House Select Committee, a ballistics expert, showed a 1948 black and white film of a goat being shot. You might remember some of that. I actually got testimony from the House Select Committee. And Larry's pointing to it. It's ballistics to show about how backward shot and about trajectories and how a shot from behind caused his motion and so forth. Well, anyway, he points out there's a white speck on the screen. He says, well, this is the bullet coming from the front. So when I saw that, and this was obviously came afterwards of this, that's one of several things that helped to at least somewhat corroborate something that I still to this day find incredible, that something like this could have been captured on film. The film's slowed down very much like Larry Sturdivant's film of the goat being shot. You can see the white speck coming. It's exact type of format. You can see it coming in, and it makes its contact. So I'll leave it at that, but I just want to think that Secret Service was very lax, to put it mildly, in Dealey Plaza, and I think that Bill Greer's inactions, more than his actions, speak loudly of high treason and just conspiracy action through inaction. And as a side event, I hope this discovery is proven or disproven.
Thank you, Vince. Before we have our discussion of this paper, I'll just tell you that the cameras here are from the local or Buffalo affiliate, NBC affiliate, Channel 2, and we're glad to have them. We're always interested in getting information out about what we're doing to the public, and so we're welcome. Buck up.
My reaction is the only thing, of course, that I can do. My personal reaction to this is, I'll give you the bad news first. I would like to confine my discussion to just what he thought about Greer. The other things that came in this report and are very interesting indeed. I'm sure there are about at least 25 people out there that will want to take him apart with that. So I am going to confine myself to what he says about Greer, because I feel that that is I think he's done an excellent job. The thing of putting Greer in the position and bringing Kellerman, the talk that Kellerman, the order that Kellerman gave, and getting Greer to turn twice in that 10-second period or 4-second period or whatever it is. I think that those are very important things that we should be much aware of. I certainly was not aware of them as much as some other people, because as you know, I've been pretty much involved with only shots on wounds, and the reactions of the fellows in the front of the car have not been haven't really been very interested in it. But I think that Vincent has brought out an important point, and certainly there are those who are going to say, yes, this is conspiracy, this is the result of, and you can see it, and these guys were doing this because they had in their minds that they knew it was going to happen. I can't quite go that far. I feel that if I were Bill Greer and at 54 and having had no experience, absolutely, remember, Kellerman and Greer had no experience whatsoever with any assassinations. They're not reacting the way, for instance, the drivers, the fellow that drove de Gaulle's Citroën, immediately, the first thing he did, they shot the tires out in one of the places. The first thing he did, he got out on the rims. I mean, the fellow absolutely floored it. But that man had been, I don't know how many were there to de Gaulle? 15 at least. So that these guys had experience, and when they heard anything, a snap of a twig, he might have floored it. So I'm not saying that Greer was all right or Greer was all wrong. I'm just saying that Greer did not have the experience of a conspiracy, and therefore the surprise, and I think the surprise was quite natural. I think, Vincent, if you've been there, as you pointed out, it's quite natural to turn and look back. You might have done it twice, and he might have had his foot on, and as you found out, he had his foot on the brake. That doesn't mean that the brake pedal was all the way down to the floor. It does mean that he had his foot on the brake and then while the red lights were showing. So I think I've got the limousine down to 11. The last, I plotted it and got the last 3 or 4 sequences I had was somewhere down, and I think it ends at 3:13. I think he was down to about 11.5 miles an hour. From 15, 17 down to around 11. And then after that, he finally gets out of there. That's true. So I feel that what we've heard this morning is excellent. It's something that we should very well be aware of. I'm not going quite so far as to condemn the Secret Service completely, because I think the element of surprise was something in here that they just didn't realize what was going to happen. That's my feeling. Now, if they had known, I wonder if those reactions were a little bit better. It would have been quite different, I think. I think you look at it that way, and you can say that Bill Greer is not all to blame. After all, he is to blame. He's not to blame for the turn. He's not to blame for the fact that they turned on to Houston and then down on the Elm. It was somebody else that did that. And therefore, he suddenly, what the hell's going on? And it takes, and I've taken 4 seconds to do that, 5 seconds to do, just turn and ask yourself what's happening. So I don't feel that just during the shots, which is, I've got it up as much as 9 seconds, you can if you want to, that 9 seconds, there's 9 seconds, right there. That's not much. That's not much. And remember, we're looking at an 1/18th of a second. We can tell whether Greer's blinking his eye or not, if you really want to. So each individual frame, we feel it's, we can sit and look at each and compare them and say, hey, and by that time, we can use up a whole minute comparing just 2 frames. Those 2 frames are only an 1/18th of a second apart. We must remember that and not condemn. I don't think you can condemn too much on the basis of looking at the Zapruder film frames. I think you can say, there's no question, as Vincent has said, that it certainly leads towards suspicion. And I feel that he's done us a great favor in bringing Bill Greer to a point where we can say, well, now, we can all say, do we agree wholeheartedly with that, or do we think that, well, is there something here? Can we actually ever say that because of Greer, that the conspiracy, the conspirators included, and they, the person before John Kennedy was killed, included the Secret Service? I'm not going to try and get into that. I'm giving it to you because I think you understand what I'm trying to say, is that it is important to try and find out who the conspirators were. I'll start by saying up at the top, I'll go with Dulles and Nixon and Hoover, and then you work it on down below, and I've got the guys down who were shooting, so I've got those fellas. Now, is Greer in the middle area here? Is Kellerman in the middle area? Don't forget that those fellas had to watch their reputations when they were interviewed by the FBI. That's always, you've got to cover something behind here. So, watch for that. I think you have to come and take the questions, Vincent.
Okay.
I like the whole operation that he did.
About 10 minutes for discussion.
I'll help you if you need help.
Now, Vincent, if anything, Greer was guilty of having slow reactions. Was he one of the agents at the Bacchanalia, the cellar door in Fort Worth the night before?
You know, it's funny because I've been trying to follow that up. I've been dying to get concrete names of the agents in the cellar, and it doesn't seem like there's any evidence. You count evidence of far as what they've, leaked
There's
out.
no list of anything.
There are.
Oh, yeah.
Not that I find. Actually naming names of everybody who's in the
there are
cellar.
reports that where is it? 10 Commission 10-something, 1023.
Are you serious?
I'm serious. They're all.
The interesting to check that Greer was one of them.
I don't know whether Greer or John was one or not. I forget.
You got that little stuff quite early.
But most of the detail in the limousine were participants.
Yeah, in the fall, I know in the fall part in general, but I didn't know the specific names of who were in the positions.
Was Greer ever disciplined at all? By the...
Chief James Riley, if anything, he was basically shut up about it. They called the men in the cellar. As you've probably seen in David Shine's book, for example, it was a call to Jimmy Hill, I think it was basically shut up about this whole incident. It's been embarrassing for the service. The whole thing's a tragedy. Let's forget about it. So there was no punishment. Chief James Rawley did not punish him whatsoever. And obviously, if you read the Secret Service rule book, it's been reprinted in some books. That's grounds for removal of the service. And especially when a president's murdered and they don't do anything about it and they're intoxicated. They were there until literally 11/22/63 in the morning.
The whole bunch of them should have been thrown out of the secret.
Yeah, but that's
I have one last question along these lines. Have you studied anything about Greer's subsequent career? Did he, if he was a conspirator, did he profit in any way from the action he took?
No.
Did he come in any money? Did he
That's something that.
have a gorgeous retirement? A la college.
The thing about him was just like the conflicting testimony. It seemed like he always presented testimony that was just like totally. He went against the senior agent in charge of Ward Kellerman. But after, okay, your question is directly, what happened after November 22nd, 1963? Did he benefit? What did he do afterwards? I think, frankly, I'll be honest with you, I have not found anything that says what happened to him. I know Roy Kellerman continued into the service, but as far as benefits, what happened after?
You might look into it.
Yeah, I want to. That's the major.
Can anyone respond to that?
Break of, I'm sorry, you got a question.
Yes, we retired from the Secret Service just at least a year later. It's in the New York Times. I believe he was originally from Ireland.
Yeah. Originally from Ireland, right? And I know he lived in Baltimore.
Died recently too.
In 1985.
And the screw they had on him was his daughter's illness.
I'm sorry, what's that?
The screw they had on him was his daughter's illness. That's how they were able to torture him. He had a daughter with, I believe it was cerebral palsy or leukemia or I forget what. And it was quid pro quo.
Yeah, you're hitting on it here. Just real quick on the phone here. This is why I'm kind of in some areas of Secret Service, like, I've done a lot of research in other areas, I'm a little lax. Just the thing is with me is, when I started out, I was kind of a jack of all trades, master of none. I tried to write a book, kind of like Mars, and in fact, I tried to cram everything in there. And now my perspective is the Secret Service, so I am going to be getting into these areas that I'm not fully.
The one thing that I read somewhere is that if the idea of a rifle shot from a building is to kill the president is because they couldn't get any closer. Now, if the Secret Service was involved, they could have done a boating accident, an airplane crash, poison, any number of things.
Well, there's even, well, I think what, in Europe, I mean, they're used to conspiracies, and it's obviously, even back to days of Julius Caesar, it's your bodyguards. That's the key to
Yeah,
successful
right.
coup
But
d'etat.
also, if you're going to spend all the time and energy to set up Oswald in the book depository, why have a gunman on the grassy knoll? It defeats your whole purpose. So the idea is that there possibly could have been a fake attempt on Kennedy planned by
Well, there's the thing about the diversionary shots and things.
Yeah.
All I know is, I mean, there's conflicting
This would
testimony.
explain the
Oh, yeah.
Secret Service, because they're waiting for this theatrics.
Right. Okay.
That's why they didn't react, because of the fact that they were told that there was going to be a fake attempt, which was going to make Kennedy go against the Cubans, because of the fact there was a lot of evidence that was brought to bear about Oswald's supposedly affiliation with the Cuban intelligence, which were never used, which were passed off by Sturgis and these people.
Right.
And this was, in fact, the first plan, and then actually the second plan was brought in after the first plan, which they decided to actually kill. That's my...
There's a brief reference to this simulated business that I just discovered recently in a footnote in Farewell America, which was written in 1968. If you look up the page that refers to Gary Underhill, I don't think it's the same footnote, but it happens to be on the same page. The author or authors say that this was not a simulated assassination like Oswald thought, or something like that in a footnote. And that's 1968 that was said.
Yeah, that
I
would be
think,
pretty powerful. Some of the things you're
Now,
supposedly
you know,
gearing back.
if there's some accuracy to that book, you know, maybe the Secret Service were fooled into thinking, and maybe Oswald was fooled into thinking he was participating in a simulated assassination.
That is a good thought.
I want to reinforce that, please just, I want to suggest to you where you go, someplace, check Colonel Prouty, if possible, talk to him personally about actual security stripping and security stripping tests. I have now what looks like evidence for 4 security stripping tests against 4 presidents, including Carter, in which people say in interviews, I was told there was a test of the president's security. Now, there are 2 ways to look at, just for a moment, 2 ways to look at evidence, and that is to use what I suggest is Occam's razor, the least number of statements about the most phenomenal. But the alternative is you've got to give yourself, were they guilty or not guilty, and that's not logical. There is a third possibility, got it, that they were patsy.
Oh, yeah.
No, I'm
yeah.
saying, so in a
Yeah.
security strip, precisely what you said may have been going on. That's number 1.
Okay.
Number 2, Crowley will tell you, Gary and Larry Harris will talk to you about military intelligence and military reserve stripping at
Yeah,
Dealey
that's
Plaza.
what I could
Right?
briefly there.
And you'll also find out that there was security stripping involved with the Special Services Bureau and Jack Rebel. So you have all
Not
right.
Not
Okay, so now
Santonia
I'll
Houston,
focus
yeah.
on the idea of security stripping actual, and then the imposition of a security strip test, right, which has occurred before and after. And you've got yourself a rather interesting phenomenon that is not contradicted by your film. Got it? All right.
Oh, yeah, real quick, I want to throw something else in here about the Houston, San Antonio, and obviously you can say, well, everything went according to schedule, but he wasn't shot in Houston, San Antonio, you know, you're working backwards, what does that prove? Well, there's actual filmed evidence, and it's even in regular documentaries you can buy in your local video store. Get 4 Days in November, David Wolbert. I just got that the other day, and you can see there's film footage, Houston, San Antonio. You won't believe the number of motorcycles that were allotted Kennedy, the speed of the car, and there's a row. It looks like almost like the golf, how many he gets. They're all down in a row. It's moving fast, and there's even clips. I don't know if it continues the whole route in San Antonio, but there's agents on the running boards and on the handholds of Clint Hill. Okay.
I believe, you can corroborate this, that the running boards on the presidential car were able to be pulled in. And there was There was a story, which I cannot verify, that a girl or a child was cut, and therefore they pulled in the running boards. That meant no one could protect the president on the running boards in Dealey Plaza. I want to just ask you, take a look at this photograph as a possible photographic anomaly for your motorcycle, making that white shirt. If you label all your motorcyclists and then look at other photographs, I think you'll find that motorcyclist shows up in other photos. I'm
See,
not
that's
saying
what
you're wrong.
impressed me too. Oh yeah, I know, because when I gave this paper, it's literally within days of giving this presentation today, there has been a few things where people have come forward and said, well, you know what, Vince, okay, there is a little explanation that, like, that area in particular, that's a major one there. I don't know, I still don't see it, but I'm not, that could be valid.
Just remind me, I had that acceleration deceleration pattern for you, down to frames. Okay? So I'll share that with you.
Oh, it'd be great.
I'd like to share a couple things. One is the bullet hole in the throat. Out of high treason, he talks about the bruise being on the bottom. Now, it took me a long time to figure out where the bullet came from. I agree with Mr. Keller there that it wasn't Chet Brown, but I agree with you where it came from because it couldn't go over the windshield. You have to clear the windshield in that throat. And when you do that, it's up higher. Now, I talked to a guy, a friend of mine from Dallas. They have paved over that manhole cover. It's no longer in existence. It's under about 8 inches
It's
past
like the James Peg got hurt.
Exactly. Okay. That's the way I think, because you got an angle like this to hit him over the windshield like that, hit him in the throat.
Right, and it seems ridiculous. I mean, the sewer theory to me, like I said in my paper, not to keep not repeat the blatantly issue, but to me that sounds like a fringe idea, like sewer theory, okay, whatever. But and even if this film is, whoever proves it, I'm even giving myself an out here. I'm saying even if. I'm saying that this appears to me that that would afford projected. I think that's where the conflict has been. Grassy Knoll, Texas School Book Depository, conflicting accounts of where that smoke was and the smell of gunpowder on the street. See, people try to skirt the issue and say, well, I'll tell you what, it's not too feasible it came from the Knoll either, but that's more likely than the depository, therefore that's where it came from. I don't buy that. I think it's the smell. The manhole cover was, where the Stemmons Freeway sign is? In the umbrella? It was right down.
Limousine side.
Yeah, limousine side. Yeah, JFK side.
Closer to you said pass.
I'm sorry, what is it?
Yours says pass. I
no.
wasn't going to bring it up.
Yeah, right there. That's right.
Oh, the sewer.
Yeah.
Draw it on the chalkboard.
Well,
Okay, well,
the
yeah.
sewer was right at the bottom of the steps.
Right, yeah, but at the bottom of the steps, where I met Hudson was, like right down there.
What would be the distance?
Distance, what, oh my God. I don't know. It wasn't much at all. From where Kennedy was shot in 313.
That's 30 yards.
About 30 yards, yeah.
Okay, so, I'm sorry, we're obviously, a lot of people want to get into this, and like I say, we have the rest of the conference time. Yeah, here.
Years ago, Ken Jones was told by a newsman, I believe his name was Sam Pate, that Pate had observed smoke coming from the sewer.
Right. Motorcycle officer covered it up. There's still a moving picture where the motorcycle officer positions his motorcycle. I didn't want to get into that because I don't still want to appear too much in the fringe with this. I want to kind of go either way with it. But for what's worth, there is a motion picture of Thomas Atkins film. The motorcycle officer, if you can talk, is literally going out of his way to put it right in front. And there's still photos after Frank Chantarelli still photos where there's policemen in the motorcycle still congregated right there, right in front, after the crowds have all congregated. This is obviously within a half hour afterwards. So they wanted to cover it up and keep going.
Okay.
I think what we've demonstrated here today for the whole weekend is there's such a thing as what we believe in food for thought. I think this whole weekend has been a feast. I think every day in the formal conference meetings here and in the informal meetings together one-on-one with everybody, I think we've, to me it's encouraging. I don't know. I think that I think we've demonstrated very well just the levels of agency complicity in the case, FBI, CIA, Secret Service, possible mafia involvement. The levels of that complicity has been debated here, but in the foreknowledge of agencies and people towards the crime and the cover-up. But so I think this weekend's been really good. I appreciate Professor Rose, and may I say from your demonstrations on Oswald and suspicion of the anomalies, I think you and Philip Melanson and maybe to lesser extent Paul Hope, I think you guys got that whole area very convincing as far as the anomalies there, which was shown. It also shows that nothing's black and white in this case too. And there's a tendency, I don't know, sometimes maybe if it's personal pride, your research, your hard work, where sometimes I'm guilty of it too, so I'm not passing judgment on anybody. I mean, we're all human. There will be a tendency to say, well, the mafia did it, hey, I don't believe in your theory. Or the CIA did it, hey, I don't believe what you're saying here. And I think it's, because nothing's black and white, I think it's a little bit of everything can be mixed into here. And nobody is really totally right and nobody's totally wrong. You know, so I think that's something that, I think that's something we're actually seeing here. And just the whole thing that Charles was talking about his novel, in the respect that I think that anger and emotion is good, because that fuels the fire. Like I think that the average man in the street, at least I talked to for what it's worth, they think there's a conspiracy. Oh yeah, who's someone in the grassy knoll, and they name a certain agency, fill in the blank, and then it's like, well, what about that Pirates game? It's kind of like it's along that level, you know. It's like because a lot of people, they don't see the historical ramifications. They think like what, well, quote Lipton here, a man in a building shot a man in a car, and that's it. And I think when you demonstrate the ramifications afterwards, beyond the personal feelings of what you thought about JFK and that's what's going to get the blood going. And I think that was a good point made. Whether the Oliver Stone movie might be some, you know, conceived red herring, if people want to take that viewpoint, I think it's still going to do a world of good, is getting out there just for nothing else, the general awareness, which is, you know, we bring this conference together for awareness of people in the know like us, but the man on the street who has X amount of interest in the case or knowledge or whatnot, that's going to bring the case up to a level. Whether Oliver Stone's going to, you know, go this way or that way is, you know, it's going to be that much better or whatever. And I just think in general, I think the level of general knowledge on the case has improved. It's saying, like, where do we go from here with the case, what we do. But it just seems like people, and here again, people on the street, the people, that's the people we're trying to appeal to, is trying to get people to be aware of our research. I mean, the old saying, if a tree falls in the woods, nobody hears it, makes a sign. We can go to where we're blue in the face and check them documents out and look what we find, everybody, you know. But I mean, we're not coin collectors and stamp collectors here. I mean, just to satisfy our personal knowledge, we're here to, you know, and we know this too. I mean, I'm not saying anything new. We're here to present, you know, our case and try to, you know, do something with it. And I think the fact that the average people on the street that I encounter, that maybe they do show those emotions of kind of an indifference, the things that they tell me, it's almost like I want to say, how did you know that? Or where did you read that? Or, damn, man, it's like, you know about that document, you know about that film. It's almost surprising sometimes, and I think that's good. And I don't know where we were, because, well, I'm only 25, so it's not like I've been on this case forever. You know, I was too young to remember a lot of things, but it just seems to me that I can even recall before Best Evidence in High Treason, and I was, you know, I was like in middle school when the Hot Select Committee came out. People didn't know anything. I mean, they had no, it was just, I just didn't know how to explain it. It was like the best they know about was the anomalies and the single bullet theory. But now it's just like a whole realm of people naming names, whether it's speculation or not. So I think that in that respect, I think this conference and what we're doing is really good. And I think that reflects on what you're saying, where do we go from here? And the points that you brought in your paper, that you were trying to explain the things that we know. I think that that's good. I think we do know all the points that you stressed. So no matter what everybody's personal beliefs are, I think it's the fact that we've got that out. It's good.
Speaking of the Stone film, I'd like to encourage everybody to put together a one-page flyer that could be made available in whatever local theater is showing the Stone film, so that all over the country, we've got people who come in to see the film can get some other information, at least maybe somebody to contact or some further information to follow up on.
Yeah. Yeah.
As a retired police officer, and there are other police officers in the room.
Good address.
Quite a lot. I just want you to know that we've all investigated a lot of crimes and interviewed a lot of people. And what you do, I have a lot of respect for what you're doing here, and the enthusiasm with which you're doing it. You're taking on a very large task, and I'm very encouraged by what I see. And if there's any way I can help personally, or it's only to encourage you to keep going. I think you've come a long, long way, particularly since the time that Lipton came out with his first book, which might have had errors, but took you in a whole different direction, and I think you're well on the way. Thank you.
Well, as long as we start being subject to nice ones, why don't we start to wind up in terms of